I'm done. Very happy. Okay, welcome everybody to today's planning meeting, the 5th of August 2025, Sorell Planning Authority SPA meeting. I would like to advise that the audio-visual recording is being made of this meeting. I also remind everyone present to be respectful and considerate towards others attending the meeting. Language or behaviour that could be perceived as offensive, defamatory or threatening to any person attending the meeting or to those listening to the recording will not be tolerated. Item 2, apologies for absence. Councillor Reynolds and Councillor Merrick-Casada. Confirmation of the last minutes, that the recommendation that the minutes of the Sorell Planning Authority SPA meeting held on the 3rd of June 2025 be confirmed. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Larkins and Councillor Nichols. All those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest in items on the agenda for today? No? That's good. Thank you. In considering the following land use planning matters, the Sorell Planning Authority intends to act as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. Item number 5 on the agenda, land use planning. 5.1, report on the representations received for draft planning scheme amendment. Is there in front of you the numbers? Local business zone on Primrose Sands. The proposal part rezone to local business zone and specific area plan. There is a recommendation there into item A of the recommendation. Can I have a move, please? Councillor Larkins and Councillor Terenius is second. Would you like to say a few words, Shane, before I open for questions?
Through the chair, the report really just rounds out the consultation process. So concluded the execution. No representations were received, and as the legislation requires a report from council to that effect.
Are there any questions around this? No? Can I put the recommendation to the vote then, please? Unanimous, thank you very much. Item 5.2, page 7, urban growth boundary update. Recommendation that the council resolves to note the report. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Woolley and Councillor Reid. Thank you. Any questions on this? No.
Could I just make a comment? On page 7, and it says under strategic plan, give consideration to the potential impacts of growth and developments. I think it should be a little bit harsher than that, and I would like to see serious consideration. Because as you know, I have a lot of concerns about various the way places growing too quickly without a lot of infrastructure in place. I don't know what others feel, but
anybody like to add to Councillor Terenius' comments? I mean, it will be a rigorous assessment.
Yes, and I was pleased to see that the structure plan and looking for funding, I believe, General Manager. With the government expanding the growth area that the committee wasn't sort of looking at, shouldn't the government be paying for that structure plan?
Through the chair, that there were, as it relates to Sorell, the changes that the minister put through this amendment to the urban growth boundary were largely consistent with what we'd submitted
But
anyway.
they're to the other side of the,
Yeah, inclusive of that. So that was consistent with what we put in as our submission for the next version of the long-term land use strategy. The only, let me carefully say, I think the only council that may have got areas included that hadn't previously considered them was Clarence.
Correct.
Yeah. So what happened with Sorell was, apart from a small area up on the hill here, it was all consistent with what we've been.
I thought the other side of the bypass, there was only a certain amount and they've expanded on that.
No, through chairs, the area that they've included in their growth boundaries matches what we've indicated as our, what we call Sorell East, as our long-term growth area. So that was, first of all, that was captured when Shane and other planning staff dealt with the LPS process, where the commission put a special area plan investigation area, sorry about the terminology mix up, Shane, over that area. So it's, again, consistent with that.
Right.
There's a lot that has to happen before it comes to fruition.
Thank you.
If I may, I think, Councillor, through you, Mayor, Councillor Tony, I think you were talking about, we've had conversations about they may have exaggerated the numbers that they were going to put inside the building, if I recall correctly. Yeah, it's a number that I don't think we necessarily agree with.
Yeah, through the chair, when Shane pointed out they took the total area as being all available for housing, when in reality you were saying it's a large chunk that's school, open space, resident housing, plus some employment generation as well. So it was a fairly coarse assessment.
This didn't include this time Mount Garrett. No.
But it would be nice if we did receive some money to be able to put into a structure plan. And that has been mentioned in conversations with the relevant ministers as well. Councils need supporting to do this. And I think it was mentioned at the GAT as well, because we're not the only ones in this position.
And I don't like the chances of the landowners putting in money for a structure plan, which is the alternative, isn't it? If we
Let's do Shane's thunder, if it's the right term. We've always maintained from the start that unless the collective of owners work together and work with council to progress this, then there's no way we would support an individual owner absent the others. But, and then Shane, maybe talk quickly about the submission and prepared for the federal funding to assist with some structure planning and infrastructure planning for the Ingham site and Sorell East, because it's not small dollars.
no.
Yeah, through the mayor. So, in association with extending the urban growth boundary, the minister has introduced into some associated guidelines the concept of a precinct structure plan. We've talked around the table before about township structure plans. These precinct structure plans are not, they really just focus on the individual area to be rezoned, but it is about connectivity and land uses and doing it all properly up front, which is what we've sought funding from through a federal grant program. And they're certainly they're not cheap exercises. Yeah, it's not 10K here or 20K here. It's a substantial amount of money to do these things.
And they take a long time, or fair time to do. Thank you.
Councillor Reid, through the chair. Just on that last point, time, what's the, in very broad terms, what sort of time frame are we looking at? Although it's almost like saying how long is this stream, but what would you expect? If there was, if we can assume a eagerness from the state government to get things moving.
Through the mayor, what I say is if we have the funds to do it, yeah, a precinct structure plan for the larger growth area, be a 12 to 24 month project. There's a lot of background analysis and a lot of consultation would be required. And that, once you have that, you then open the door to a rezoning application. So, talking, yeah, a minimum, it's, yeah, we're years away from actually seeing anything happen on the ground.
Thanks. That was in the context. Thanks very much.
Any more questions for Shane? No? Right. All those in favour of this recommendation? Unanimous, thank you very much. Over on to page 14, item 5.3, tourist operation lake cable and aqua park. Proposal tourist operation lake and aqua park on 4 Old Fawcett Road, Fawcett. I have a mover for this, please. Councillor Larkins and Councillor Campbell to second. Can I open it to the floor, please? Any questions from the floor? Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I noted in the traffic report and also in the representations that there's quite a few questions about the access and the traffic movement. One of, perhaps if we could clarify, please, what the final position is, where the access point will be and what the impact on, particularly across that section of the road will be.
Through the Mayor, the final resolution needs to be put back to the developer. We're not, the recommendation that's proposed is that we don't accept specifically what they're proposing in their application. Because it does appear to be a conflict with their driveway that's opposite the site, and that conflict really to do with the gradient of the road. So maybe a case of relocating it X number of metres to the south of where they've proposed it, or identifying a different location along that point. They'll need to do some more work on that and detail that in engineering design drawings before any works can commence.
Thank you.
Shane, have we had much background, previous decisions on proposals like this in our Shire?
Certainly a number of applications have proposed much more substantive development than this in the agricultural zone. So there's the Irani concrete proposal that's nearby.
And probably the dog retraining centre, isn't it?
Sorell, yeah, that's a similar thing. The scheme does, in that agricultural zone, allow a range of ancillary services, ancillary uses, ancillary types of businesses that are intended to support and diversify farming income and farming operations. So we do see, visitor accommodation, paid type proposals, distilleries, wineries, and we can certainly obviously consider tourist operations that are discretionary use in the zone. So it is quite a broad amount of flexibility in the zone.
So you didn't see this as anywhere out of the ordinary?
But I'll tell you, the specific nature of that activity is not common. Fundamental principles, though, are not too dissimilar to the other types of uses I've talked about, in the sense that the The scheme allows though some flexibility subject to not affecting the agricultural potential of the land. So it's really trying to encourage use, activity, investment, provided that it doesn't detract from long-term agricultural potential of the site. So from that sense, this is not uncommon.
Thanks.
Through the Mayor, is there any concern, Shane, about the agriculture being so close to where the dam is and potential runoff of contaminants into the dam?
So our environmental health, major regulatory and compliance has been in contact with the applicant when it was lodged, so we did get some initial advice back around the water testing regime. So that tends to be in a public health sense. So
Yes.
people will be in contact with that water body, and there's obviously various standards that need to be met, and so they will do regular water quality monitoring around that.
And that'll be left up to them to do, or will they engage a contractor to do that? Or will council do that on their behalf?
Look, the specifics, but the testing does have to be at a recognised
Right,
lab, so.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Councillor Trenies.
This is going to be very long-winded, but I do feel for the people overlooking this, and so I'm objecting. Well, I'm not supporting the fun park, as somebody has quoted it as, and I will quote from one of the representations. If I wanted to live near a fun park, I would have moved to the Gold Coast. Now, I fought long and hard for the first stage of the South East Irrigation Scheme to protect our farmland for future generations. I'm going to read a lot of this because there's plenty here. I believe if this proposal is allowed to proceed, this will only be the beginning of further developments of the same vein. I read with great interest all the representations, and it's taken me a couple of hours today to write up all this and read things. And many residents have pertinent questions. This proposal is discretionary in an agricultural zone, and we don't have to accept it. Under these circumstances, I always ask myself, how would I feel if this was in front of me? I think you know the answer to that. If it was impacting on my lifestyle. The proposal has no regard or consideration for the rural living lifestyle enjoyed by the community in the vicinity. The dam on the property is a home for many birds, and the surrounds of the dam to many animals. The NRM committee should be concerned about loss of habitat. Noise travels, and boy do I know that. There will be yelling, squealing, loudspeakers, etc., etc. The cable itself is supposed to be completely silent, and the motor is electric with no noise. Well, I find this rather hard to believe. The report says the poles will be 8 metres above the water. I think somewhere it will be up to 10 metres, and will certainly be seen from Riverdown Court, Moore Park Court, and Old Fawcett Road. The proposal is within the scenic protection area and threatens the amenity and character of the area. Opponents raise a number of pertinent questions, including the structure of the main dam wall, concerned about the structural integrity of the wall. We have a traffic impact statement with a disclaimer from Hubble, and the disclaimer states, the report is based on and in reliance upon information provided to Hubble by the client, and will take no responsibility for errors or omissions from misstatements made by third parties. Apparently lighting isn't to be considered or not relevant in an agricultural area from what I've read. To sum up, I googled some information asking if an aqua park is allowed in an agricultural zone, and I'll read the reply. Generally, no. An aqua park is not usually permitted in an agricultural zone. Ag zones are primarily designated for farming and related activities. While some rural zones may allow for limited tourism, those are often subject to strict conditions and are not typically intended for commercial ventures like an aqua park. How on earth will this proposal value add to the existing agricultural use? It is incompatible with the agricultural zoning and the rural lifestyle currently enjoyed by the residents in the vicinity. We have our beaches, our beautiful beaches, a new swimming pool under construction, and I don't believe we need this development. Thanks for listening.
Now, Jane, do you feel that some of those were good points raised? Do you feel that these are adequately covered? Well, take it you do, and you make the recommendations, but do the conditions, because you've got a lot of conditions in this, will they adequately address the problems that you're talking about here?
Through the Mayor, no, I don't think they will. I guess I appreciate what the representatives are raising as concerns regarding their outlook and amenities and the like. But the planning standard we have doesn't have any regard to those matters. So in the agricultural zone, it's all about, does it adversely affect that agricultural potential of the site or adjoining land? It's a zone that doesn't include any zone interface provisions, so it doesn't consider its impact on adjoining residential land. Conversely, the rural living zone does. So the rural living zone is the zone that has greater setbacks for houses from agricultural land. And so the plan is being set up to manage that zone interface through provisions of the rural living zone, not through provisions of the agricultural zone. So for that reason, those issues of noise or outlook are not, in my mind, of any significant weight in how we determine this application.
And this is another case, a supplementary point, where we're actually enforcing the Tasmanian planning scheme.
Correct.
I have a question, Jane. Is it within our ability to add an extra condition here in this meeting for some sort of green screening that may buffer the noise on the dam edge or without interfering with infrastructure? Is that something you can do that would help mask some of the view and certainly buffer some of the noise?
Thank you. So, at broad terms, landscaping is a relevant condition, and it's generally seen as a practical purpose. We haven't included it mainly because of what the zoning provisions do. And so usually you need a condition to relate to something in the planning scheme, which I don't think this one has. So including a condition, and I couldn't tell you, we haven't investigated whether landscaping between the dam and the adjoining properties is or isn't problematic just from dam wall perspective, or just how they manage that farmland around it. It's obviously not, the land in between is obviously not, hasn't been actively cropped as part of the recent enterprises on the site, but I couldn't tell you whether that's going to be problematic or not from the owner. So I suggest that would be not something to encourage.
Any further? Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. For Shane, just wondering, and it might come out in the building application, but is there going to be fencing around this just for safety reasons? or like how you would have full fencing, I guess, around pool? Is there going to be fencing around, I know it's an existing dam, but turning into a water park and it might change how kids do it?
Through the mayor, I don't have an accurate answer for that. If this was a publicly accessible facility, it would warrant a fence treatment. They might not, subject to their arrangements of risk management, it may not be necessary if, well, the customers are there under supervision and the like. So I suspect it depends on their management measures and what their insurance company accepts as being acceptable level of risk mitigation. Saying that too, that fencing doesn't require any planning approval, so it can happen through that building process without any impact on a planning decision.
Thank you.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, yes. Just clarifying the usage, this is presented as a tourist operation. One more of the representations refers to recreation, that this is recreation more than tourism. If it had been considered as recreation, would there have been much difference in the way it's assessed?
Yes, there would have been differences. So a sport and recreation use is a catch-all for indoor gyms and shooting ranges and a range of different activities. Is prohibited use in that agriculture zone. So it is a fundamental distinction, which I always assessed it. We were satisfied that this didn't have the characteristics of a swimming club or something like that. This was a specific theme park type of attraction, and would operate more in line with what we think of as a theme park than as an organised sporting and recreational activity.
Could I just ask Shane, if I recall, there was a parcel of land in Pierce's Road some year or so ago. I'm aware that they weren't allowed to build a house on that parcel, it's agricultural land, or any other structure on that land, unless they could prove that it had something to do with the farming aspect of it. I think that the new owner put in that farm management plan had to do all that sort of thing, and then built something from what I've heard. How could we say that for that particular piece of land and not allow something like a house or anything, and it had to be associated with the agricultural industry, and yet this isn't associated with the agricultural industry? I mean, we seem to be
Through the mayor. Yes, so it is, there are difficult tests to build a house in the agricultural zone. Either the house is necessary for an agricultural operation or the characteristics of that particular site are just such that it could never sustain an agricultural use, so the house is not going to make any difference. I guess the policy position there that the government's trying to achieve is to not further fragment agricultural land across multiple owners, and certainly the ability to build a house on a property has a significant effect on the value of the land that banks put on it and the market will put on it. So if you can't build a house on it, it's going to be worth a lot less than the farmer next door might be able to buy. That's the thinking, roughly. Whereas with the agricultural zone, it allows these ranges of uses to diversify the existing farming operations. So it's a different context in the sense that this site does have the existing operations ongoing, and so it is about diversifying in a way that doesn't restrict that potential.
Thanks.
Councillor Larkins.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that we are sort of talking about things that maybe that's happening all year round. I note in here that the development proposes to operate only 128 days roughly in a 12-month period, specifically being school holidays, public holidays, Christmas, New Year's, and peak tourist periods, where it would be useful and daylight savings where they'd actually be able to take utilisation and Tasmanian weather into conditions to be able to actually use it. I think we're sort of thinking almost, it seems, getting a bit off that it could be a year-round practice. This is very specific. Well, this is going to be a very specific thing. As we've heard, it's not going to impact on the ability to use the agricultural land for agriculture. This is a diversification. Like any business, we have to look at multiple revenue sources to try and be sustainable. And I think this is just another method that an agricultural business is looking at to consider how to remain sustainable and viable into the future. I think it's a really good thing.
I believe if it's expanded, then it has to come back to council. It doesn't meet the conditions. Is that correct?
Is that the case?
If
If the operational
if
days and hours change,
if there was significant changes, yeah,
what constitutes significant change?
case by case basis, I can't advance from that.
Just
That's
one
fine.
more through the mayor. Our lights aren't in the rate at the moment, is that right, Shane?
Correct.
Yes. So would that be considered a significant change?
Quite possibly, in the sense that if they needed lights, they'd be certainly be looking at some changes to their operational basis. So yeah, that would quite possibly be a trigger.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Councillor Rees.
Following up on those last couple of points, the actual hours of operation are 10 to 6, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Is that correct?
I believe so.
I noted some concerns about later or broader hours of operation, but that's the stated and approved operation. Thank you. Sorry, and I just finished up by saying I can relate to those who have concerns about this change of use impacting the livability of their residents and their place. Having had that happen where my mum and dad live, and then a bypass go in a rural outlook with a bypass then constructed next door. And I suppose the main point is that the planning scheme, as has been explained, has specific provisions, and a lot of the concerns that have been put to us fall outside the planning scheme, and we can't consider them.
And we sit as planning authority.
And we sit here as the planning authority, so that puts us personally in a difficult, somewhat conflicted situation, but as a planning authority, it's pretty clear, as the reports outlined. That's it.
Nothing further, so can I put this to the vote then? The recommendation is for conditional approval or approval with the conditions as listed. So all those in favour of this recommendation for conditional approval, please show hands. Thank you. Those against? One against. Thank you. That brings us to the conclusion of today's planning authority meeting at 5:05. Thank you very much.